Hello, everyone, and warm welcome to another Timber Exchange webinar. This week, we are discussing the European timber market outlook in the Nordics and Central Europe. Our guests are none others than Mr. Ville Valio, Sales Director of Luvian, and Mr. Johannes Mörth, Sales Director of Mercer Timber Products. We will soon start, but first, as always, we want to know where in the world you are watching from. So down below in the chat, press the chat button and tell us where in the world you are. Now you should be able to chat. It was disabled. Looking at the list, I recognize a lot of good friends from around the world. Okay, wow. Stockholm, Romania, Mobile, Alabama. That must be early for you guys. Austria, Estonia, Finland, Brazil, Latvia, England, Ashmore, England. Wow. No, MWK. Okay, somewhere in England. Gentlemen, Ville, Johannes, you have a global audience today.
It looks like, yeah.
Yeah.
Impressed.
Very interesting as usual. Wow, we're going to have a good webinar today and discuss the European timber market. But first, a short announcement by the host, Timber Exchange. We're able to do this because we provide global lumber market data. It is our passion and our mission, both the quantitative side and then the qualitative side. And in one single platform, you can track more than 400 market signals. And we have been working very hard over the past few months and this year. You can now track the near real-time CIF and DAP price for 170 products in 26 different markets, log prices in all key markets, local sell prices in, for example, MENA and China. You can track the production and inventory as well, even in Russia now, MENA housing activity, and of course, shipment and manifest insights for US, India, and MENA. And we're adding an iPhone app, benchmarks, and even forecasts right now and very, very soon. And the prices that we publish them on the 15th of every month. And here you can see around the screen some of the products and markets that we track. If you want to see the results or contribute to them, do write to pricesurvey@timberexchange.com. And when you do contribute to the price survey, you're doing something really, really good. Because even if you just submit one price per month, we will donate for that month in your name 1 week of food for a family in need. And our goal is to distribute 1 million meals in 12 months. And our goal is to reach 600 monthly price contributors. And here you can see some of the fantastic contributions you, the audience, have been making. So thank you for that. And one of our most important upcoming releases is real-time delivery data in the US of lumber. Which counties or states are lumber deliveries going to? Where is the lumber being shipped from? Is it foreign or domestic? What is the total volume of shipments of lumber? And what products are most or least used? And now, without further ado, let's discuss the European timber market, the Nordics and Central Europe with Mr. Ville Valio and Mr. Johannes Mörth. Hello, gentlemen. How are you today? Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for the invitation. Quite doing well. Really, for me, it's the first time here with you. We know each since long time, I think, and now it's the first time I'm joining your timber webinar. And really blessed that you invited me to speak today.
It's our honor. Thank you so much for coming on, Johannes. Where are you joining us from, Johannes?
I'm actually sitting in Austria, so on my living place from my home office, let's say.
Okay, I thought you were sitting in the mill.
No, not today, because I'm traveling always a lot around. So I met also some customer this week in Austria, and so then I made the decision not to go again to Germany to the mill. And there I'm also sitting once in Friesau, once in Torgau. This maybe I can tell later as well.
Ville, very good to meet you, and thank you so much for coming on. Where are you sitting and joining us from?
Yes, hello all, and thank you for the invitation, Amir. It's a pleasure to be over here. We're having an interesting audience. And greetings from Comanești, Romania. I'm here visiting our group's blockboard factory. I've been traveling the whole week here in Romania for the first time ever in Romania. But usually I'm sitting, of course, at the Luvian sawmill on the western coast of Finland.
Thank you so much both for coming on. I want the audience to get to know first you, gentlemen. So can you please tell us a little bit about your experience in the industry and what you do in your company? Ville, would you like to start?
Yeah, I've been over 20 years in the business. My first real job was in 2004. Been working at a couple of different companies, but now been 2 years with Luvian, which is quite close to my home where my family lives, and we're owned by the HS Timber Group, as many of you know. I run the sales deliveries section. I'm the sales director of the Luvian sawmill.
Very interesting indeed. Johannes?
Yeah, I'm now in total more than 35 years in the wood industry. I started in the 1990s, first as a production director for H-glued panels. And then after a couple of years, I made the decision to change into the sales. Now I'm more than 25 years also in the wood sales, let's say, and started in Austria, changed then to companies in Germany, and now since 2017, when Mercer took over the mill in April 2017, since then I joined Mercer as a sales director and responsible for the timber sales.
Very, very interesting. We're going to have a great webinar. I'm very excited for this. And so let's get to know your companies a little bit. What products do your companies produce? How much, and what are your key markets today? Johannes?
Yeah, as you know, we have two sawmills. One is in Friesau, the second one is in Torgau. Torgau would take over 2.5 years back. In Friesau, we are focused on timber production for sales, means rough sawn, but also S4S. S4S is in the meantime still the bigger part of the production. It's a total share of about 58%, and rough sawn only 42%. The cutting in Friesau, annually it's about 1.4 million solid cubic input. And Torgau, where we have the second mill, there's the focus still on the pallet production. So means the bigger part of the pallet of the sawn timber production is used internally for their own pallet production, and there we are selling only a part of the timber externally as S4S timber as well, or rough sawn. And there, Torgau, the cupping capacity, the input this year is roughly about 900,000 solid cubics of logs.
And Johannes, what are your key markets around the world?
The key markets for sure is our home market, Germany, for sure, because we are sitting in the middle of Germany. Then let's say the Central Europe means the neighbor country around Germany. So Austria, Italy, Benelux market, but also to Spain, and also a smaller part to the East Europe, like Poland or Czech Republic. And a big share in our group is still the US market. So it's from Friesau, let's say roughly it's about 40% what we are shipping to the US. And then some other core markets like Japan, or also, let's say, the entire Middle East, without specific countries. So let's say the MENA region.
Yes, the MENA region is 16 countries in general. It's in total. It's easier to say the markets you are not in than going through all of them.
Exactly, yeah. But when you tell MENA, it's still everyone knows from which area on the world you're speaking about.
Ville, what about you and Luvia?
Yeah, Luvia produces about 300,000 cubes of KD timber in a year. 2/3 of it is spruce, 1/3 of it is pine. Out of the spruce, we plane ourselves about 70,000 cubes of plain products, and we also do some 15,000 cubes in a year ready painted products, mostly claddings for European markets. From the plain products, we do, like I said, the raw material for our own painting, and then majority goes to Europe, Germany, one of the other main markets, and then quite a big share to the US as well. That has been one of our most recent new markets for the plain products. Then the spruce rough sawn, predominantly Europe, Central Europe, Holland, Germany, Estonia, a little bit to Finland as well. And pine is then, as everybody knows, a little bit everything, pretty much everything outside the continental Europe. So Middle East, North Africa being one of the other main markets, Japan as well, one of the other key markets.
Super interesting. So, gentlemen, let's discuss the market. That's why we are all here. How do you see the market today compared to the past 12 months? Johannes.
Yeah, the market has faced some difficulties and really some big challenges this year. Yeah? Additionally, now since from September, we are also have a lack of logs supply in Germany. Yeah? So everyone have heard maybe that the German production this year has fallen to the level of the 2016 figures. Yeah? Which for sure takes also a bit pressure out of the domestic market. Yeah, export still challenging, more or less every market, but also US with the relatively lower demand, the whole tariff issue, also UK, yeah, since let's say 2 months with the price pressure, especially from the Scandinavians, so the price there dropped down. Export markets, the war in the Middle East makes also the supply chain a bit more difficult, that the vessel we are not anymore able to go via the Suez Canal. They have to go out around Africa. So these are all challenges we haven't had last year, let's say. Yeah. And yeah, there's no time that you can sit back and relax. Really, every month, every day, there's something new, a new challenge coming up or popping up, what you have to solve.
Ville, how do you see it?
And agree with Johannes. With the one of the main things that I have in my head is the short headlights, what we have all the time, and like Johannes described, we're like pretty much every month you have a different problem in that market, with that logistics, with that supply, with those sales. So it seems that a steady, staple quarters do no longer exist. But all in all, I have a little bit dual feeling. First of all, every year in the autumn, after the COVID and after the start of the war in Ukraine and after the hangover from both of those, we have every autumn hoped that the next year would be better than this, that it can't be as low as this year. And I remember vividly a year ago when we made the budget for 2025, we thought that it will most likely, or if not even definitely, be better than 2024. Now we're in November again, and we can say that no, it wasn't better. But was it clearly worse? Perhaps not. We had different problems. We had different problems in different markets. All in all, the year was steady, but it wasn't good steady. It was a struggle. It was a struggle. But no major change from last year. But that's perhaps the unfortunate thing. Some markets work really well. Some products sell really well. But then there are areas and products where we had problems, especially after the summer.
And on that topic, over the past years, ever since COVID, you both describe, the Tivoli game, whack-a-mole. You finish one problem, a new thing comes up. We've battled with forest fires, spruce bark beetle, inflation, energy costs. What factors are affecting your home markets now and why? Ville?
If we're talking about the home market and meaning Finland, perhaps Estonia as well, I think that the main thing affecting our sales in the home market is that people don't have money, nor they don't have confidence in spending it to their living environment. I think that's the key thing, that people are not spending money for one reason or the other in their living environment. And that's the business where we're in. We're selling products for people to improve their living environments. And the building activity in Finland is suffering from one of the worst recessions during the period after the Second World War, no doubt about it. And one thing that I'm especially worried is the new startups of single family homes. We've seen levels of 20,000 single family homes being built in a year in Finland. Now we're down to 5,000, and I think that the next good year, whenever that will be 10,000 new single family houses. So there are many reasons. Perhaps let's not spend too much time on it, but urbanization and the communities do not have lots new properties for the houses anymore, especially in those areas where the workplaces are. It has changed completely. I'm afraid that the startups of new houses is just chronically lower than ever before. What I raise my hopes in, especially in Finland, I raise my hopes in the second homes, holiday homes, cottages, houses in near the skiing resorts. There we might be seeing some improvements in the future, but unfortunately not in the single family houses. Of course, apartments in towns, building of those needs to increase, but how much it will do good for our industries is yet to be seen. Not much cladding being put on the apartment buildings, that's for sure.
And
wooden claddings.
And that means also if there's less consumption within Finland, there's more volume available for export that needs to go offshore. But then when everybody has more available volume for offshore, it creates a bit of a messy situation.
Of course, if the demand doesn't increase, but I'm sure that if we think of globally, the Finnish production, even German production, our whole, let's say, Northern European Alps and the Northern Europe, our production is still a drop in the ocean globally. So I'm sure that we will all find markets when the demand picks up, and even if it stays on this level and our eastern neighbor stays out of the markets, I think that the supply and demand will continue to be somehow in balance.
Yes, we will discuss the eastern neighbor in a little bit. Johannes, what factors are affecting your home market now and why?
Yeah, additionally, what Ville have said is the stronger the impact, I think, was certainly the enormous volume of bark beetles in Germany. Yeah, and this excessive timber quantities that had to be harvested in the recent years, this is the wood that we are lacking now and in the coming years. And this ends also that we have quite a sharp increase in log prices, especially in spruce. So when I'm looking back from, let's say, the beginning or Q1, Q2, compared to nowadays, we've had a 30% price increase in the log price. And it's quite hard then to bring your sales prices up, let's say, to the same level. And this was one of the biggest challenges. And still the lack of log is one of the biggest challenge actually now, especially since Q3, but now also in Q4, and maybe Q1 next year, the lack of logs availability. This is the biggest challenge, beside all the individual market challenges we have.
And we're going to come a little bit to today's time. And so how is raw material availability and cost in your markets today? And does this affect production outlook for your markets? Johannes?
Yeah, the log price for spruce have been at the peak level for quite some time. Yeah, so this high level will remain or even increase in Q1, especially for spruce. Yeah. However, all this comes with poor availability. So sawmills in Germany are really fighting to get log quantities. This is the biggest issue actually since 2 months. Yeah? This means that compared internationally, we have very high product costs due to the high log costs, and which somewhat hinders our competitiveness, especially when you see now that are some Nordic countries reducing their log prices. So this will be then a big challenge for us as well.
Ville?
Yeah, after listening for 4 days, our colleagues here of the group in Romania, I can't complain the situation in Finland. It's completely different from here, from Central and Eastern Europe. We know that the volume is there in the forest. Of course, there's a lot of political debate surrounding the subject. But if we're talking about the present day legislation and the present day properties what we have and possibilities to acquire the logs, I think that the log situation compared to the Finnish timber production is in balance. There's no need for significant decrease in production, but there's also no possibilities for an increase in the production. The main problem has been that the log price is in a record high figure. If we're talking about numbers, our logs, depending on the species, depending on the lots, depending on the possibilities to harvest it, we're talking about 80 to 85 euros standing, and then whatever costs the mills have, 20-25 on top of that. But let's remember, when we hear the figures like 150 from Germany or Estonia, that the measurement is completely different. So we're including bark, and we're paying for the full 3D shape. What would it be in comparison to the Germans? I don't know, perhaps 130. So it's not that far away. But of course, absolutely, it's too high compared to the prices that we can get from the end products. The difference is too big. They're too small.
Yeah.
Ville, we see in official statistics that log costs in Finland are falling. And last time we had a webinar, we discussed Finland's new pulp projects, which are consuming a lot of logs, millions of cubic meters. So how does this affect the Finnish market? And why is the log price potentially falling?
Well, the webinar which you mentioned, it was probably a year and a half ago. Have to admit that some things that I said then turn out to be wrong. One of them is the effect of the new pulp mills and overall the pulp milling business and capacity what we have in Finland. The effect has turned out to be so that we're able to push the log cost down. The pulp log has decreased quite a lot in in prices. The sawn logs definitely not as much, but at least we see some drop, and that's purely coming from the consumption, from the demand of the production, and especially from the pulp milling companies. The pulp milling business is in severe difficulties. Those of you who have followed the Helsinki Stock Exchange, and especially the forest industry companies, they have lost 30, 40, 50% of their value in the previous year and a half. The pulping business is in serious difficulty. The price what they're getting from the markets is definitely not matching the costs, and at the same time we as independent sawmills and of course the big groups were able to push the price down, and fortunately so far the decrease in the log cost has not shown in the supply or the willingness to sell from the forest owners. But to remind of our customers and people on the second phase in the value chain, the decrease is actually very small. We're talking about a couple of euros, 5 euros on the timber cost. It's not much so far helped with our profitability. It's still very high compared to the end product, but at least the direction is to it's right.
Johannes, what are the biggest consuming wood sectors in your home market today, and what's the outlook of them?
I would say it's especially where we are in the German market is mainly the construction sector. Means doesn't matter, finger jointed beams, so-called KVH, CLD, glulam, yeah. And there I know since 2-3 years the figures, so the building is on the more, let's say, lower level in Germany. A second big factor, or where material is needed, is for still the let's say the entire packaging business. Doesn't matter, pallets, packaging, whatever. And this is also a bit a mirror of the entire economic. And you see there also the demand on this packaging material is still not the highest, let's say. Yeah? And the construction sector is still on the lower level. So despite the lower volume of timber being processed at the sawmills in Germany, it was still possible to implement the necessary price increases driven by the log price increase. Yeah? At least in some sections like the center boards, such for KVH raw material. On the other side, at sideboards for packaging pallets, the prices still need to be adjusted. Yeah? But there are still quantities, mainly from Scandinavia, on the market with also lower price levels, which makes it quite difficult to increase the prices. Same for lamina for the glulam production. Yeah, but this week there was also in Cologne the so-called Branchentag-Holz, where the entire companies meet there on 2 days with an exhibition, and there we could hear a slight sense of optimism, let's say. Yeah? And also the people there are expecting a rise of prices in the first quarter. But this is also mainly driven by the high log costs we have in Germany.
Ville, what about Finland? You mentioned the housing sector is very important, especially single-family homes or villas. What other sectors consume a lot of timber in Finland, and what's your outlook for them?
Especially if we're talking about Luvian and our products and
in Finland in general,
and mills like us, we're in the visual products business, and hence I like to call it the living environment business. That's the main end use of our products is people wanting to have visual wooden products in their homes and in their second homes. That's the key business. So private building renovation. Of course, we also have packaging and glulam beams and and whatever. But the key market is visual wood products. The DIY sector, the merchant sector it's relatively small in outside of this. Of course, the structural wood is one thing, but if we're talking about volumes, it's relatively small. So it's down to the same thing what I mentioned earlier. People wanting the key thing is that do people want to spend money on these sort of products? They did in 21, 22, as we're well aware, but so far the circumstances do not look good. People don't have the money, and those who do don't want to spend it now.
You both operate in Europe and you work in Europe. Do you work with the UK? How much do you export and sell to, does your country sell to Europe and to the UK, and how are those markets performing? Johannes?
Yeah, as example, to give you an and I don't know, but we are selling roughly about 20% of our volumes in the German market, another 6% to the UK, the rest of Europe, beside UK and Germany, another 13% of the volume. So we have quite spread our volumes. The UK especially, we have a relatively consistent performance there. Only the price drop in September surprised us somewhat. Yeah, I was also a week back at there was the Timber Development United Kingdom. They have had a meeting also, and I was there, and they are quite also optimistic. Yeah, and they see an increase in demand as soon the season is starting. So means February, March. Yeah, for about 5% in the coming year. So the outlook is also okay. Prices is on the one side, yeah, but the outlook for the UK isn't that bad. Yeah, so if they are expecting an increase, especially in timber construction, for 5%, and UK in total is importing about, I think, 6 million cubics. At there, another 5% is still a good volume. What they need more or additionally next year.
Ville, anything to add or a different point of view?
No, definitely not a different point of view. Europe and the UK are not so good with statistics as you know, but Europe, including Finland and the UK, Ireland, definitely I would say out of the finished production more than 50%. Those mills who cut more of spruce, it's higher, and those mills who cut pine, it's lower, but definitely over 50% is to the European markets. And I think that all my colleagues in other companies can agree that after everything and after all the news about recession in Germany and in Western Europe and the political problems, the markets have functioned well. I would say that the European markets, perhaps Finland excluded, but the Central European market, the continental European markets, UK, Ireland on top of that, I think that they have put us in this at least goodish position where we are today. And perhaps Russia being excluded from the market is the key thing, but I feel somehow compared to pretty much all the other markets in Europe, the supply and demand is in balance. Of course, the demand is very low, but so seems to be the supply.
Let's discuss also a little bit the world's biggest timber market, or as the Americans call it, lumber market. How do you gentlemen see export to the US for Germany and Finland? Ville?
Well, I think traditionally for Finnish sawmillers, the US markets is a big unknown. It perhaps hasn't been interesting. Many of the sawmills don't have a planing line. The lengths are different. The sizes are different. The price has not been tempting. The end users, the top three end users, what the US market brings to your mind are non-visual end users. So we automatically in Finland, we think that we're not competitive in that market. And of course, for those end users, we're not. We have to admit it. We have started, as I mentioned in the beginning, we have started the US market a couple of years ago with big help from our mother company and from the HS group. And it's I consider it as one significant possibility for our mill in Luvian and perhaps why not the others as well. It's definitely the market which people should be aware of even in Finland and understand and recognize that there's something else than 2x4 needed in the US as well. It's a big market, and there are people who are wanting to buy, for example, claddings and profiles, and if you learn how to do the products, it's a good market, of course, like you said, the largest in the world.
Johannes, how do you see it for Germany?
Well, in particular, you see the share of the German deliveries total from the European Union to the US is still significant. I think they have the highest share of the entire volume shipped there. And mostly is shipped to the, let's say, east or southeast or south coast. And there, in generally, you can say, so the European timber is very often preferred compared to a southern yellow pine. Yeah? So they are still want or looking for the European timber with all the challenges we have there. So from today's point of view, I see the quantities will certainly be at the same level again next year, if not higher.
And Johannes, especially with you, I want to dive a little bit deeper into the US lumber market. So we know that US housing rate, US mortgage rates are high, but I've read recently they have gone down slightly. However, housing is still unaffordable. There is currently a government shutdown. I did read something this morning that it's close to ending, but I'm not sure it has ended just yet. And there is also a lot of deportations of people, all the nice people that are willing to build homes. So what can we expect from the US market going forward in terms of lumber consumption?
Honestly, that's a difficult question and not entirely easy to answer. Yeah, it's true. The signs aren't the best right now. But however, all these challenges are hitting Canadian supplier far harder than European ones. So with the anti-dumping and countervailing duties, the additional tax, the average of the Canadian, it's about 45%, while the European have only just 10%. And due to the many permanent closures of production and curtailments from Canada, I think European timber will remain in a good demand even next year. US production themselves, they are not able to cover the entire volume, even if it's on a lower level expected to years before. And so the Canadians definitely will supply lower volumes to the US. And this lack, which may become, could the Europeans fill, I think. And also price-wise, I see maybe not the first quarter, but up from the second, we will see there also prices will further increase, that we are coming back to a proper level. So this is my expectation, what I have there.
Johannes, you mentioned something very interesting, that Europe might increase presence in the US, Canada might decrease presence in the US. Yeah. So does that mean Canada will enter Europe and MENA and Asia more and take market share from Europe? Is that one possibility?
Theoretically, yes. But it's exactly the MENA market. So the Canadians are focused to produce dimension lumber, 2x4, 2x6, 2x10. There is also some market in the MENA which are able to use these sizes, but mainly they are customized sizes, what especially from the German and the Austrian, what they are looking for, mainly for construction forming, only 3 meter, only 4 meter, special sizes in thickness, special sizes in width. And I see there, this will be the challenge. Are the Canadian flexible enough to produce the sizes what these customers are looking for? There's not on the entire world a 2x4 and 2x6 construction market. There is some small volumes also in MENA, but not the majority. And this will be the challenge. And also to the UK, you heard maybe the British Columbia opened an office a month ago or something like this in London to promote more the timber. There's the same. Okay, CLS, they can do maybe some 2x3, 2x4, 2x6, but this is not the entire volume what UK is looking for. They have a wide range of carcassing sizes, 45 by 45 up to 245, same in 72, S4S. Will or are the Canadian able to produce the sizes what other markets outside the US people are looking for? This will be the question mark. If they're able to do, then we may have an additional competitor in the future. If they are not able to do these sizes on request, what the people are looking for, then there will be maybe a part they will ship into the market, but it will not be generally a competitor for us.
Very, very interesting indeed.
Yeah.
Ville, any thoughts on that?
No, I can't. I was just intrigued listening to the expert, and at the same time, I guess that the light came to the markets. I just noticed I was sitting in the dark, but no, nothing to add. This is what I've been thinking about as well. That where do the Canadians steer the production if and when needed? But most likely it will be extremely difficult to penetrate markets that they do not know, as it would be for us as well.
Let's discuss MENA and Asia a little bit. They are very important timber markets globally. How important are these markets for your country, and how are they performing today? Ville?
Well, if I start with Asia, we all know that the price difference between Europe and China, especially Vietnam, a little bit better, and there's possibilities to find some good end uses in the furniture production, especially. But if we think about the big fish, China, the price difference is just too big. It's not that we wouldn't want to sell to China or we wouldn't have good customers over there with our still we're being touched, but the price difference is too big, and we know who and what is the reason for the price difference, and it's a sad thing, but we've been literally out of the Chinese market for a couple of years, and I don't think that if the political situation doesn't change, it will continue to be so. Another big market in Asia is Japan. We know that the Japanese economy is not in a good shape. It's an important market for the Finnish market, different than China no longer is. But Japan still continues to be an important market for the Europeans. It's unfortunate their economy is not in a good shape. The population is decreasing, and the traditional single-family houses are very much less affordable than in the past. And let's remember that Japan is still the only G7 country that is importing timber from Russia, and that's of course a sad thing as well. MENA, then on the other hand, we all know that for the pine rough sawn business from Scandinavia, it's one of the most important markets. There are different countries. All of them are a bit different with different specifications and different needs. So far we can still say that it has worked well. Some countries better than the others. Egypt, Morocco, Algeria has suffered a lot from the import licenses. We know that there's demand and people would like to buy wood and use wood, but the government is restricting supply of foreign timber or the use of foreign currencies outside of the country, and that's why it's been bit difficult. But the latest news from Egypt again are promising that the stocks in Alexandria have decreased, and people are willing to buy more, pay more for the Scandinavian timber. The MENA markets, alongside with Europe, I believe in them, and I believe in the good future of the MENA markets, as long as we would just get the foreign currency things off the table, and people would be allowed to trade as they want.
There is some good news coming out of Algeria. Right before this call, webinar, I got some information that Algeria has started to, the authority in charge of these import licenses has started taking new applications, and that companies are getting up to 1.5 million euros approved for import over the next 2 months. So not enormous amounts, but it's good enough to get started again.
That's really good news. That's really good news.
Johannes, how do you see MENA and Asia today?
So MENA, when I'm looking, the products from Germany and Austria cannot be directly compared with the Scandinavians. So while from Austria and Germany, material is primarily used for the construction sector, like concrete forming, shuttering, and so on, length 3 meters, 4 meters, I think the Scandinavian material is more suitable for interior and furniture. So I think these are a bit two different stories, let's say. When I see also the Egypt, they for sure are more or less married with the Scandinavian on the 6th or 7th grade. In sizes, you could not directly compare with the German as example. Yeah? In Asia, there we are. You see there when I look on Japan, in generally the figures of the house construction is decreasing. Even the size of the houses are decreasing. So it was maybe 2 years back or something like this. The average single family house have had about 120 square meters. Nowadays it's only 100. So it means also 20% smaller houses. But there, the only point is that the framing construction is getting a higher share of the market. So the traditional houses with both and beam and maboshira is decreasing. There, it's also demand is going down, while the dimension lumber is increasing. And this gives also a bit possibilities, let's say, for the European in generally, because on the other hand side, the Canadian, which are also competitors in CLS in Japan, it's only, I think, in general, what they are getting out from their production is about 5 to 8% share J grade, and the rest is they are shipping to US. So if they are now reducing the volumes to the US, means also they have a lower quantity of J grade available for Japan. And still this material in Japan, they are looking for, so they have the need there. Because these framing houses are getting a higher share from the total construction. And so these are opens maybe some possibilities also for the European in 2x4, 2x6, 2x10, which they are looking for. And they are also open and flexible enough to use there as spruce as well as pine. This was, we have seen it ourselves, so up from June, they accepted at least the first deliveries in pine, also in 2x4, 2x6, because they are known about from Canada, because there they're getting only the SPF, so it's spruce pine fir mixed. And these are, I think, possibilities for the next year for all European producers, especially for S5s material, while other sizes may be lacking in Japan. China, for sure, quite a big market, but they are dominated, I think, nowadays or since 2-3 years by the Russians. We are there shipping only, let's say, the off grade of the US or UK production. So we are still in with a small step only, but it's not a market where we are looking to increase the volumes. Yeah, we need it for the off grade, yes, but all the other sizes, I think they are dominated by the Russians.
Super, super interesting indeed. And the final question for today, before we open the Q&A session, where you, the audience, can submit your questions directly to the audience, to the speakers, and I will be moderating them. So if you're an audience member, you want to ask Mr. Ville or Mr. Johannes a question, down below there's a button called Q&A. Press that, write your question, and I will be asking them. Gentlemen, my final question for you today is, do you feel that the Russian lumber is encroaching on European lumber anywhere around the world? And what can be done about that? I open the floor.
Yeah, also I feel when it comes to imports of wood products, especially pallets from Eastern Europe, I sometimes get the feeling that something isn't quite right there. No? Here, stricter controls on origin of the wood are definitely needed. And I think there the European Bristol have to find the ways to make here more proper controls if there are illegal material, timber, logs, whatever, are coming into the EU. And there they have to act, I think.
Ville?
Yeah, me personally, and within our key markets, especially in Europe, I can't say that we notice Russian timber lurking around the corner. Like I said earlier, for the goodish situation on the European markets, the main reason is that the Russians are away. But then we have markets, China, Vietnam to some extent, India, Japan to some extent. We see the effect that they're not implying the sanctions on the same level than Europe is doing, and it's a really sad thing considering the constant killing every day in Ukraine. Is Russia a threat to us on the markets in the future? Of course, one day it will be again. And then we'll see what the supply and demand balance will be. But of course, we're happy that they stay away from our home markets for the time being.
One thing that we've noticed from a data perspective, if you look at Egyptian import statistics, is actually that Russia has doubled its volume to Egypt. And this is, of course, taking very valuable market share from Sweden and Finland. It's still below what it was pre-COVID and pre-war, but it's still now in this market environment, every cubic meter of market share counts.
Of course. And like I said, it's a supply and demand balance on like we see in China, the supply and demand are not in balance since the Russians are there. The price level is what it is. In Egypt, in spite of the Russians being growing on the market, it is the supply and demand is getting better, the balance at the moment. So it is what it is. Of course, if we could press a button and they would be away from that market as well, it would be very, very good news. But unfortunately, that's not the case.
Okay. I promise to work on building such a button and revert to you.
Excellent.
We will be entering the Q&A session momentarily. So for the audience, do you have a question about Finland, Germany, their global markets around the world, logistics, about really anything that comes to mind? Do press the Q&A button down below and I will be moderating your questions. We'll wait for a minute or so until some questions come in. And until then, we'll look at some interesting updates. One of the interesting things that we recently launched is local sell prices around the world. And we were just discussing Egypt. Here we can see the local sell prices in Egypt, meaning sawmills customers in Egypt, what are they selling for on the local market? Very interesting, very useful, and getting the earliest market signal and using that to understand what probably will happen going forward. Something else very important is, of course, also how is Russian production moving? We see here that it's on the way down. Very interesting and useful. And my favorite thing is actually tracking the sentiment of the market. Here we can see the percentage of respondents that believe in a falling market, stable market, or increasing market, all available on the Timber Exchange platform. Now let's open the Q&A and see the questions that we have received. The first question today is, how are logistics on key routes? Johannes?
I think the logistic is also like a roller coaster ride. Yeah. It's always these up and downs. And when I see in Germany, there the challenge is the availability of trucks. Yeah, and thus then the prices. This was this year always really a fight to find and to get the trucks. Then also to MENA, Southeast. I think we discussed on the beginning shortly, the impact of worse means ship have to take different routes, and as a result, cargo's costs are at a higher level. Also, Asia has certainly become cheaper recently. Yeah, so it's always there and up and down yeah, it's like a roller coaster entire year. Up and down, you never know what's coming next.
Johannes, Germany, does it ship by all train, truck, bulk, container, or?
It depends. So in Germany, you see the shipment in the domestic market is mainly done by trucks. With train, unfortunately, they are, I will not say the German ban only, but in general, let's say the train isn't really competitive in time of, also in point of time and pricing. So I've had this example in customer in Austria. It is he is buying unseasoned green lumber, not KD, and it was always, I think, I don't know how many years, always cheaper to go by wagon to the customer. But since I think 1.5 years, it costs more than a truckload. So we have had to change back to trucks, even with fresh lumber, green lumber. It was cheaper compared to a wagon. Export in generally in the Middle East, directions Southeast Asia, so China, Pakistan, Taiwan, Japan, whatever, is done mainly by container. So there you load the container directly in the sawmill, which goes then by truck to the next hub. And they are loaded then on train and bring the container by train to the North Port, which is mainly Hamburg. And ship then the container from Hamburg in the entire world. US business from, let's say, Central Europe, means mostly Germany, is done by break-bulk shipments. So they are really mostly use the port of Prague because they are really aware about handling the timber for the US. And you find there in the port of Prague more or less all good named suppliers which are shipping to the US, and it's all done by break-bulk.
Super interesting. Ville, how is the situation for logistics in Finland on the key routes?
Well, I think the key thing is that I couldn't agree more with Johannes that it's been a roller coaster, and it continues to be. If I consider of the talks that we have internally in the office or with the colleagues from the group, we talk about logistics quite a lot. Of course, not more than about products and prices, but definitely relatively more than in the past. And there's been some irregular discrepancies which you can't estimate. Of course, we've had the Houthi issue, the Suez Canal issue. We've had the digestion at the ports in Central Europe, at the main container ports, strikes, etc. And we also see we've seen some decreases on the container freights. Some destinations like Japan have become more competitive in relation to the others, but then especially on the lorry freights, we've seen significant changes on the availability to different destinations, and also major price movements on the logistics. And that's something that I'm worried about. I'm not worried about certain route as such, that it would be on or off. Of course, the Suez Canal issue is ongoing, but the carriers have found a way to avoid that. But I'm more worried about, we're talking with the customers about €5 price movements there, and then all of a sudden the freight cost to a certain destination in Europe, where there's no import and export between two towns in Finland and in Central Europe, the €5 could be blown to the air in there, and you have to be always on your tip of your toes to watch what's going on in the logistics markets. It's a big topic every day in the office.
Super interesting. I have a lot of both comments and jokes that I could say, but I'll leave those for another time. We have a shy audience today, it seems. I see a lot of very smart names from all around the world. So, ladies, gentlemen, don't be shy. Ask your questions. Let's discuss the market.
It looks also, Amir, that maybe Ville and I made really some good introduction of the market. So all questions are still answered.
Yeah.
That is also absolutely true. That is actually true.
Yeah.
Let's wait one more minute. I have one question in the meantime. Gentlemen, would you say that demand and supply are balanced today, or how do you see it?
If I sorry. Yeah, sorry if I start. Considering our main markets and in Europe, I would say that the supply and demand is in balance. Like I said, both are low, but if you're asking that are they in balance, yes, they are. Then we have many markets, like mentioned, and due to the eastern neighbor where the situation is not so, or it's perhaps from their perception. But Japan is a good example where I don't consider that the supply and demand is in balance, and the business is not profitable for I don't think that any party in the value chain. So something is wrong. Middle East, North African markets we've discussed. To my eye, if like we heard your good news from yesterday or from today about Algeria, I think that we might even see that there's more demand than supply. I think that the situation in MENA is promising. All in all, globally, my opinion is supply and demand is in balance. Unfortunately, both are low.
Yeah. Quick thing that I can chime in with there is, we do these price reports now, and it's quite comprehensive, I have to say. And we have big sawmills and buyers or companies of all sizes coming and contributing. And of course, all prices are verified. And we started analyzing month to month what is happening. And we're publishing the next report on Monday. But in the last report that we published, 40% of products increased in price. And in the last report, 30% of markets saw an increase. And so it's very clear, without going too deep, it's very easy to see which markets are rising, which markets are falling, which product categories are more or less in demand. And this level of transparency hasn't been available before. It's only been available in the US in the past. And that level of having these numbers, be able to feel them, look at them, it builds confidence. And that's so important in this market, especially in this environment. Johannes, how do you see supply and demand? Sorry for going off on a...
It's but I would say not in all markets. And I see also there are even differences within the country, depending on the product group. For example, in Germany, KVH raw material, okay, is balanced, demand and supply, but it's absolutely not for packaging and pallets, means sideboards. So even there in a country, depend on the different product group, are differences there. Yeah. But in generally, yeah. But will say I'm able quite see the market quite okay, even if they are on a lower level actually. Yeah, we'll see. But it's still, I think, even 2026 will be a challenging year as well.
It will be.
Yeah.
But there are very clear signs of improvement. One thing that I can chime in with here is we see that construction activity and mortgage activity is increasing, if I remember now correctly, in UK, in Germany, in France. Renovation activity is increasing in Sweden, renovation activity. We see that construction spend is up in Saudi. We see that floor space under construction is up in China. So actually, there is a lot of good news, just that people aren't aware of it. So this is a great channel and a great opportunity to actually spread, I was about to say spread the gospel, but to spread, just update the market and have a very honest conversation, both about the good and the bad.
Yeah, correctly. Yeah.
And I agree that one of the key things, as Johannes described in Germany, what I've seen this week in Romania and what I know of Finland is that whenever the demand increases, if we're about in balance at the moment, if we're talking about especially Europe, the products that we do that we're in balance, imagine what happens when the demand increases by 5%. Who can increase the production? It's the same thing what I said a year and a half ago. The super cycle will come from the supplier's point of view because nobody can increase the production. Will the bug infestations here in Romania or in Germany, will they disappear when the demand for timber increases? No, they won't. Will the Finnish production under these political talks, what we're having almost every day in the country, will the production increase when the demand increases? No, it will not.
Very, very interesting discussion we've had today. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much to the audience for joining us today. And let's, gentlemen, let's talk again in 1 year and see what happened and update the audience then again. Thank you so much for today to you, Mr. Ville, Mr. Johannes, and thank you again to the audience. And see you already next week, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Goodbye.
Our pleasure. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.